Welcome to the 615 Sessions podcast here on this Friday. If I'm not mistaken, it's the first time Gentry Estes of the Tennessee and has been on the podcast, which is just a shitty job by me. But there is a reason to have him on today, and certainly we will find other reasons to have him on in the future. But this is a slow time in Titans news where there is actual news to do with the football team. So sometimes you got to make some, especially when the team is struggling as badly as this one has. So we're going to get into Gentry's column here in just a second. Buddy, thanks for jumping on the podcast. Thanks for being flexible with the schedule. I know it's I know you're very in demand right now.
I could just say it is an honor, Buck, to get to be a part of the podcast. So I'm enjoying it.
Not a single person has ever said that to me. So you're kind to lie. It makes me feel better, but either way. So before we jump in, the podcast is made possible, of course, by Zen Sports. Promo code ATOZTN gets you in on all the action, no matter what you're betting. Zen Sports has you covered. Must be 21 plus and in the state of Tennessee to bet at Zen Sports. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. All right, so Gentry Estes wrote a column, and the column is the subject of much conversation because instead of just reading it for 10 minutes the way that I did on the radio show, Gentry, I guess I should ask you, when you decided that you were going to write this open letter in the newspaper and on the website to Amy Adams Strunk, the Titans controlling owner, why now, I guess, is the place that we should start?
The answer is more about like how the sausage is made, kind of, and what I do, because I was originally planning to write this after the game on Sunday. That was how it was supposed to go, and I ended up switching over that night and writing about the Preds because there was some concern about their coaching situation with Andrew Burnett, and that seemed to be a little more urgent in that moment. It's the first time I think I can remember that that's ever happened, actually, where I switched after a Titans game to write about the hockey team. So I knew I was going to write something middle of the week, and I knew it was probably going to be strongly worded. And it's not the first time that I've weighed in on the lack of, media availabilities with everyone over there. Quite honestly, I wrote a thing that Rand Carthen, previously about the fact that he doesn't give too many interviews. But with Amy, it does seem to have hit a nerve this time, maybe differently than it has in the past, because when you see the way this is lining up, obviously the team's terrible. The season's terrible. They've regressed. They're getting worse. But you've also got the idea of a new stadium. They're asking more of their fans at this point. And you go to a game like the one on Sunday, and there's, the place is half full. It's just kind of a sad state of affairs right now. And there really isn't a reason to think things are about to get better. So where's the leadership? And we've tried blaming the GM and the coach. And it's like at this point, you have to blame the owner.
And it's completely fair because this is an organizational failure. We've all talked about it or written about it or, discussed it in various platforms when we're sitting in the press box watching them flounder around out there in Houston or at Nissan on Sunday against the terrible, terrible Jags. And I think that's why it hit so much harder, Gentry, than it might have had you written it, after the Commanders loss or something like that. You don't lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars at home if you're the Tennessee Titans. There's a particular point of pride when it comes to these divisional games, always, no matter what organization you're talking about and what ownership group that you're talking about, because obviously these people, these owners are very competitive amongst themselves, and they don't like to see each other succeed very often, especially when people like Hannah McNair are throwing barbs at the Titans organization ahead of that game. Like there's legit venom in some of this stuff. But just to have the Jags come in here with 2 wins on the season, be the lesser team in just about every place that you could point out, and to have it malfunction so badly, I think that's why there has been, at least from my perspective, you can correct me if you think otherwise, I think that's why, compounded with all the other rottenness and 3 straight seasons now of rottenness, that seemed to have evoked such strong emotion across the board.
I think I underestimated how angry the fan base was after that game on Sunday. To me, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. If anything, it helps their draft status. But when you really saw the response, and I know you know as well as anybody, when kind of the pulse of where this is at, and it's just the anger was for this one felt different, even among fan base, but also among the team. Being around everybody Sunday from Callahan to the players, there just seemed a vibe of we've had enough. There was just something to that just felt like, we're talking to Jeffrey Simmons after the game, and he called out the O-line briefly, but it felt like he wanted to keep going. And I was just kind of sitting there thinking, like, somebody's got to do it. If anyone's ever going to do it, it's Jeff Simmons. It's time to do it, but I think they're going to play out the string. They may win a game or two the rest of the way here, and, really who cares? But it does seem like, look, an angry fan base is not it is not what you want. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it's better than an apathetic fan base. And I think the way they're headed, it's getting more towards apathetic than it is anger.
Oh, so, no. I mean, it's reflective in everything that we do. I'm sure you've seen, you know what the metrics look like. Thank God the radio show is successful, and all the other places that they have me yammering in front of microphones are doing just fine. But that's because people are still pissed. And frankly, Gentry, that's the biggest pop I've had on anything, and God knows how many months after that Jags game. There is a palpable tension between this fan base and its organization, because it's the perfect storm of the stadium, right? What you've talked about, the reasons why it is that there are many different compounding reasons beyond just the product on the field, but because they oversold the product on the field ahead of this, because they, touted sunshine and daisies and a productive workplace. Dave Lapham of the Bengals radio network came on the radio show today and said collaboration, and my head almost exploded in real time because I'm so damn tired of hearing that word, Gentry. But with everything that's gone on with them, the fans, I had somebody send me a clip the other day. NFC Championship game against Joe Flacco and a rookie Joe Flacco and the Baltimore Ravens. And we know the level of contention in that rivalry. We understand how much Titans fans have that extra gear to them when it comes to having emotion about that particular game. And the crowd shots of Nissan Stadium blew me away. That's an unrecognizable building based on what we've seen, especially based on Sunday's results.
Yeah, no, and I mean, and you're almost used to just the other teams, like certain other franchises take it over. That's just kind of just accepted as how it works now. And look, that's fine. This is my going back to that column. I've been a little more than 5 years in this job as the columnist. As people know, I replaced Joe Rexrode when he was the columnist at the Tennessean, and I have never at any point had a chance to sit down and ask Amy Adams Strunk questions. Not one time. In 5 years. I think it goes back to maybe 6 years since she's done any sort of press availability. And look, no one, I hear what you're saying about, I don't see why she would do that. And you're probably right. I mean, from her perspective, a case could certainly be made of like, what good does this do at this point? But if anything, it just makes people feel as though someone is in charge of this. It's just, they just feel so rudderless right now. And there's so little reason for hope when you see what they have on the team. And it changed so quickly too. This is a team that a few years ago really did seem to have its act together. And the fact that it's just fallen apart, it would be, to me, nice to hear from the owner. You don't want to, nobody's asking for Jerry Jones. We're not asking for this every single week and all this stuff, but to hear a plan, and again, it goes back to the idea of, it's like, okay, well, every year we just got to fire somebody. So whose turn is it this time? And it's like, tell us a plan. Tell us a plan for how to make this better, as opposed to just, well, it's his fault this time. Stop being reactive, start being proactive on making this a better team.
Yeah. And I think, I think you're spot on with that, because even if a lot of the feedback that I'm sure you've gotten and plenty of feedback that I've gotten is, well, what difference is it going to make this year? They're not going anywhere. It's not going to fix the product on the field. But to your point about them seeming like they have a plan, Gentry, the best feedback or pushback on the idea of her speaking that I've gotten from anybody on the team, is she doesn't like public appearances, or she struggles to speak in public, or whatever the case may be, which is why she sounds so robotic when she's given those prepared remarks at every press conference that she does when she doesn't take questions. And this is my 8th year covering the team. She has only given press conferences. She has never taken questions in those press conferences, to your point, outside of Mike Keith in an interview that was obviously done by a team employee. And Mike is great at what he does, and Mike is thorough and all those things, but the optics of it.
To be fair, I did think Mike asked real questions on that. I will say that, to be fair. I thought Mike did a good job of that. I said that at the time. So really what I wrote, it kind of came off as a shot maybe at Mike, like he kind of I really didn't mean it that way. I actually thought Mike did a good job there.
No, Mike, listen, Mike, no, I wouldn't pretend to speak for Mike Keith, but Mike gets it. My whole thing though is with her is like, I don't give a shit if she's uncomfortable speaking in public. You know what I'm saying? Like if you are in one of these positions, if you're a CEO, if you're the leader of any company, you are expected to give some kind of quarterly update, some kind of regularly occurring thing for not just the employees of that company, or the coach or the general manager, or whatever phone calls or meetings they're having on a regular basis, but to the customer, especially when you are downsizing the size of your stadium, and as a result having an uptick in prices, among many other things that are long overdue, and by the way are going to be, I think there's a lot of net positives for that, for the city of Nashville and for the public in Nashville, without getting into all the complications of the financing here. But there is a certain obligation that you pointed out in that column that she has to her constituency that frankly is just not being met. And I appreciate the smiles and the team mom stuff and all this other crap. That may be real and may be genuine and come from a place of wanting to win, because I do think she wants to stick it to a bunch of other owners in the NFL, and I think she's tired of her franchise being shit on a good deal of the time that it's out there, that it's being discussed. But in making the changes that she has, without speaking publicly on the changes and the results of those changes having failed miserably, yep, to your point, it at least presents a rudderless ship beyond what normal dysfunctions any kind of organization at this level would have.
And I truly believe the idea, as I wrote, I think her heart was in the right place with the idea of collaboration. And I truly believe she looked at some of what was going on in Detroit. She liked it. She wanted to try to adopt that. But the problem is you can't fire one year, one the other, expect everybody to get together. They're in a situation this offseason where I don't know what you do other than either fire everyone or don't fire anyone. Because if you try to do this, okay, let's say it's Carthen, let's say it's Brinker, let's say get rid of the front office. Case could be made for that, certainly. Well, now you've got a GM coming in with a coach you didn't want. Didn't that happen once before with John Robinson when he got I mean, it goes kind of back to what I'm saying is, what's the long range plan versus, okay, this year we're going to do this and just kind of see how it works. And I think that does bleed into some of what they, in terms of the roster management and how the team has been put together as well. This offseason was good. I mean, we all loved some of these additions they made. You know why? Because those were the kinds of additions we would make. It had kind of a fantasy football feel to it. I'm picking this good player. I'm picking that good player. But you didn't really see the overall vision of how these guys were going to work together on a team. The biggest problem I saw with this team, going back to the preseason, and I still believe this, is just the lack of overall leadership. And it doesn't mean there aren't leaders on the team, guys that have the ability to do that. It means that there's no one who feels invested enough in this, in what's going on here, to be able to tell everyone else what to do when things are tough. Will Levis had not accomplished enough in the NFL to be able to tell veteran players, to call out someone else for playing well when he's not playing that great himself. And you look around and it's just, when times are tough, you didn't used to have to wonder whose voice was heard in that locker room. And they did. I don't think they really addressed that in the offseason in terms of just leadership and how everything was going to meld together. I think they just kind of grabbed this player and that player and that player. All right, guys, be a team.
Yeah, and it's playing pop psychologist, I guess, is part of the job when considering all these different things. Because at least at the onset, Gentry, I looked at all just the difference in personality that a lot of the players that they were adding had versus what the John Robinson MO had been, which is just some version of, to be polite, hardworking mutes on a football team versus a little more color in Calvin Ridley and a little more flair with Jarvis Brownlee, and obviously Sweat has a personality. JC, when you get him in a one-on-one setting, has something to him that I think has the potential to be the kind of leader that you're talking about down the line. But those dudes all just got here, and now to your point about that level of investment, Harold Landry is who he is as a person. He's respected by his teammates. He's loved by his teammates, but it doesn't captivate you the way that Wesley Woodyard did. Jeff Simmons is definitely rah-rah, break down the huddle guy, but I don't know that he speaks for the locker room in the same way that a Jarrell Casey did or Delaney Walker did. Or to your point about calling out guys, Jeff's an excellent player, but I don't know that I don't know that there's one perfect way to do this. And I know it's kind of just looking back at what's worked and saying, yeah, go out and find some of that, as if it's so easy to do, but it's indisputably necessary to the cohesion and function of a football team. And to your point about the organization seeming rudderless, I think that the locker room is a reflection of the organization in real ways.
No question. This is a team that has found ways to lose games. And you always felt like, and not to make this about the coaching, because I really, I think Brian Callahan's just been in a tough spot. I really do. It's hard to pin a lot of this on him, at least to me. But for Mike Vrabel, the Titans were very good at being better than the sum of their parts. That happened a lot with all the injuries, guys coming in. They're playing. He got guys to play up to a standard, and it feels like this team has been worse than the sum of its parts. And I think what we're talking about probably has a lot to do with that. They just seem to repeatedly found ways to lose football games, as opposed to in the past with Mike Vrabel. They were really good at finding ways to win games somehow. How many times, Buck, would they win a game and you would sit there and go, God, how in the world they do that? And they've lost that. They've lost the ability. And then that's what you have to have in the NFL. I mean, the margins are so thin. And the thing is, they've lost that ability, despite the fact that I think if you looked at the roster right now and just said the overall talent level of what they have right now, just position by position, it's at least comparable to those last couple of Vrabel teams, if not better.
No, I would absolutely agree with that assessment. And it's like that thing that people say about the Titans. Well, they'll win a game that they have no business winning after they drop a stinker to a team like the Jags that they should beat, except they haven't really done that. I mean, it's to your point, it's not been there. And even under Vrabel, it was waning because the roster was so depleted in terms of talent, where that Miami game was a shooting star across that season, and that was about it. Well, Gentry, I do appreciate you taking some time. I do appreciate you being flexible, like I mentioned. Check out Gentry and all the work that he and Nick Suss and all the great staff at the Tennessean are doing at Tennessean.com. Get your subscriptions there. They're so good, they've even made me pay for the newspaper, which I really, really appreciate. How much they bring to the table, and to just have quality content to be able to talk about, and quality journalism being done by two guys who I know really, really care about this stuff. So, Gentry, thank you for taking some time.
You bet, Buck. Take care.